74% of leaders identified a gap in talent and skills. And it's not so much access to talent, but it's access to skills and the right skills.
There's going to be a big shakeup, a big reset in how and what kind of talent gets hired. There'll be new job families. The skills that are required are going to be very, very different. They're thinking about, how AI is going to impact and are going to be AI first, AI native.
AI needs to have the instrumentation to essentially catch errors by itself. What are the new frameworks that I have to use in the context of AI? Those become adjacencies.
The Hyderabad Center is absolutely playing a big role. It is and we don't call it anymore GCCs. Hyderabad is our talent and innovation location at scale.
Welcome to Times Techies Talks. This is part of a series of discussions we are having in partnership with Accenture, and our focus today is on next-gen GCCs, Global Capability Centers. India's GCC ecosystem is at a defining moment. Most GCCs today are already scaling AI, data, and automation across the enterprise. At the same time, we are seeing a new group of GCCs set up, taking on a much bigger role in shaping enterprise-wide outcomes. So the real opportunity now is not just about scaling AI, it's about translating that into enterprise impact. In other words, the next phase of GCC evolution is about how they are designed to deliver outcomes at scale. To discuss this, we have with us 4 highly accomplished professionals, all of them deeply involved in GCCs. We have with us Paul Jeroshimowicz. Paul is a senior managing director at Accenture with nearly 30 years of experience focused on large-scale operating model and organization design transformation programs. We have with us Lalit Ahuja. Lalit is the founder and CEO of Answer Inc., the largest global company for establishing and operating global capability centers. We have Hari Krishna Verma Nadimpalli. Hari is managing director of the Inspire Brands India Innovation Center in Hyderabad. Inspire Brands owns restaurant brands that many of us are familiar with, at least some of them. Baskin Robbins, Buffalo Wild Wings, Dunkin', that's Dunkin' Donuts, I guess, yeah? Dunkin' is the name of the brand itself. Jimmy John's, Arby's, and Sonic Drive-In. My sons would love to meet you. We have Dr. Ludwig Heinzelmann. Ludwig is director at Deutsche Börse, and he's head of Deutsche Börse India. He's also head of global IT delivery network at the company. And in that role, he's at the forefront of large-scale technology transformation. He plays a pivotal role in strengthening India's position in the company's global delivery ecosystem. He comes with a strong background in project management, consulting, and strategy. Welcome, Ludwig. Can I start with you, Lalit? You've been in this for so long, and you really helped build India's GCC ecosystem. And you've for long been saying, don't even call it a GCC, it's really, these centers are really part of the enterprise. Give us an idea, how are GCCs now evolving in today's age of AI? Is there a big change happening?
Thank you, Sujit. So I guess to begin with, for GCCs to be relevant in the age of AIs, they'll have to be more of the enterprise, because AI adoption is going to be a lot about context. And therefore, GCCs will need to be integrated with business and be the repository for the enterprise context. AI is going to be the biggest change management challenge for the enterprises. And sometimes change can be very profound. It can derail organizations. So GCCs will play a very important role in helping organizations manage that change, with a lot of AI work, being driven out of the GCCs. GCCs will also become AI adoption accelerators. This is going to be obviously a result of change, the ability of GCCs to hire talent at scale, to build infrastructure, to do some bold experiments. in the world of AI, there's going to be a reimagination of how work gets done, the decomposition of work itself, who does the work, where does the work happen. So a lot of the formulation of the emerging, operating models that will be relevant in the age of AI is going to be led out of the GCCs. So this is a pivotal moment for the GCCs to play a defining role in how AI gets adopted in the enterprises. I guess there's some sort of a fatigue that companies have around, how AI would be onboarded into the enterprises. So everyone's now, beginning the journey, and GCCs are at the forefront of AI adoption for the enterprises.
What is your sense of all the GCCs in India? What proportion would actually be focusing on AI and recognizing that they need to lead it in some sense?
So I would divide these GCCs into three categories. The newer ones that are coming in with the right form and structure from an AI perspective. They're thinking about, how AI is going to impact and are going to be AI first, AI native, AI enabled, whatever word we want to use. We have about, I would say, 15, 20% of the GCCs, the current GCCs that are experimenting with AI across different functions. So that journey is going on. And I would say the balance are still in the wait and watch mode, given the fact that much of this is driven from the enterprises. So it's coming. It's a question of time before a big percentage of them also get onto this bandwagon. But I guess we got to focus on some of the newer ones that are starting right. And they will start, obviously, the trail of the incumbent, adopting GCCs at AI at scale.
Okay. We'll come more to that later. Paul, building on that, the GCCs that are really at the forefront of adopting this AI-led transformations, what are the commonalities that you see across those GCCs?
Yeah, thank you, Sujit, and panelists for joining us today. We did a Pulse Insights report earlier this year, surveying 250 GCC leaders here in India. And across a variety of criteria, 29% of the respondents qualified as being catalysts of enterprise reinvention. And there's a lot in there, but a big part of that is AI in particular and the role that they're playing. And so three things with regards to AI and playing this role as a catalyst that was differentiated between the leaders and the others. One is that the GCC leader and the leadership team are at the table co-authoring the AI strategy. So coming to the business, to headquarters with an agenda, not sitting back and waiting to receive the agenda. And I think we'll hear some of that from our panelists in this role of co-authorship. The second one is shaping how work gets done, not only in the GCC, but at HQ or in the business. So it's a little bit of a shift from in earlier days, maybe mirroring HQ. There's now an opportunity in the GCC because of the breaking down of silos between technology and business function and business fluency, as well as ecosystem partner participation, to work in new and different ways in the GCC that could actually be ported back to HQ. We see many of those where in AI fluency, the GCC may be slightly more advanced. And so how does they play a role in shaping that new way of working? And then the third is an investment in talent, business and AI skills and fluency, which we can spend more time talking about that. So I just say in summary, those 3 points are really participating in the leadership and co-authorship, not sitting back and waiting to be told to execute.
Okay. 29%, that's almost a third of the GCCs. So they're saying that's a fairly big number already kind of at this forefront in some sense.
Yeah, so the other categories in that were, it was only 5% that are really just focused on delivery or delivery execution out of the 100%. There was a set that was focused on functional transformation. So really just driving an improvement, in a testing process or in a finance process, right? These 29% are playing a role in not only reinventing the work inside the GCC, but the end-to-end. Whether that be a process or a value chain or a capability or a product team, they were influencing how work is being done differently at headquarters and in the business. That was really what fits into the 29%. I think within that, as Lalit had mentioned, there's some that would influence that through more classic means, and others that are really doing it through AI. So I'm concurring with Lalit's. I think the statistics are close around the 20% that are really driving that AI powered. And then there'll be some that are doing that more through operating model and leadership remit, right? And they'll catch up. But 29%, yes.
This 29%, how many of them would be actually, the GCC itself is taking the complete lead on AI versus the headquarters?
Well, and I don't think in any case is it versus,
Okay.
right? I think it's always this idea of co-authorship. An AI strategy is a company strategy at this point. And so it's more, do the leaders have a seat at the table with an equal pen in co-authoring? But yeah, that is one of the characteristics of those 29%, that they have that role, and they're looking to the GCC as the place to test and scale and then drive adoption across business.
Okay. Hari, give us an idea. Before this discussion, we were talking, and I was really interested. You have multiple brands, and you are trying to understand your customers. You said before COVID, you barely knew your customers. That's the nature of QSR. Very difficult to understand your customers. Now you're using technology. I assume AI is a big part of that, to try and understand customers across your many brands. Give us an idea. And I keep hearing this. You need to foundationally change many things around data, around business process re-engineering, governance, all of that. What kind of major challenges did you face in trying to build that basic AI foundation?
I wouldn't claim we've built it, but thank you for that question. So we are in the process of building it, right? I mean, I think the early signals point towards a direction where we see that the current model of AI works best when it has context. And the context is, you present the context in the form of multiple documents, siloed data pipelines, and even live data that you provide as you kind of go through implementation, specifically in the context of software development lifecycle and stuff like that, right? So that's not the best use of, and the quality varies very, very from each team because it is more ad hoc. So how do we think about data as an asset as opposed to documents as an asset? So how do you start shifting the mindset from saying, I have all these documents, this is the context, go do your job, versus how do I build more robust data pipelines? The idea is to essentially change and become more consistent with respect to quality. And today, I think it's how clever prompts deliver better results versus how those clever prompts are ingrained as part of the data model itself and the kind of data assets that you provide AI with. So those are some of the things that we are seeing on the data side. Ways of working, I think it's governance, right? I mean, I'll come to governance first. So our governance is more a control mechanism as opposed to a test and learn mechanism today, right? There are people that are reviewing code, that are doing their job, but they're all very in the model of saying we'll prevent errors, we will make sure that we are being consistent, but they're not ingrained. So instrumentation, AI needs to have the instrumentation to essentially catch errors by itself, right? And under what context did it make the error? How do we do logging? How do we learn from that and feedback loop that we create for it to generate better results for you? So I think those models of control-based governance should give way to more test and learn, create that psychological safety for people, surface errors early on, right? We've seen cases where we've gone all the way through merge request and putting things in production, and then somebody stops it saying, hey, we missed something, right? So that's, I think, things that we need to kind of look at, different changes and different ways of thinking about governance and ways of working. Obviously, we can't just bolt our current ways of working into an AI world and expect things to work the same way. I think the role boundaries are changing, right? Do we need the handoff process, the so-called assembly line, right? I mean, from an initiative to a product management to an engineering to quality assurance to deployment. We are assembly model of working to now I think we are talking about a craft-based model, right? So this is more artistic. This requires you to have adjacent skills that are just not core skills. So I think those are some of the things in terms of ways of working. The process that defines delivery has to change drastically. Those are things that we have learned early in the cycle. So scaling is not a function of AI being smart. It is smart, we know that. It is all the processes that go around that makes it scalable.
Okay.
Whether how good a data governance model do we have? What are the enterprise processes on what you call as ways of working and things like that. So that's what defines and are critical for scaling AI.
Let me give a couple of examples. Again, I was very interested when you were talking earlier before this discussion, but some of the things that you've done with these technologies, bringing a lot of data together to kind of understand the customer better and all that across seasons, across time of day, etc. Something that you've done?
Yeah, I think, yes, we are trying that. I mean, we do have built-in models that are trying to predict demand, for example, that are trying to predict our customer lifetime values. So these are things that so the foundational element for all of this is the quality of data, the quantity of data, the trust in the data that you have. I think these are the foundational elements for us to have these, very often ignored. We have to move from a model of saying trust-based to trustability, right? And there's a difference and a nuance that you say, use this model because it's trust-based, because we have certified that this works, versus the business saying, yes, I trust this, the outcome from this model, because there is so much of human in the loop decisions that still get made because it is not trustable yet.
Okay.
And that's because the underlying data pipelines or the siloed data and the context is, it's not fully context aware.
Okay.
Right, and hence you see most of the conversations that happen is who is the smartest person in the room. That's basically driving these prompts, right? And we say prompt engineering, we need context. AI models don't have memory. In the sense that the business context is in the tribal knowledge of the people that are running it. And so if you don't codify them, that's where I think you see very, very wide range of outputs, which reduces the trust factor.
Okay. Ludwig, same question to you. How are you dealing with this entire? And give us some examples in your capital market infrastructure kind of things. Where are you thinking of applying AI, and what are the kind of foundational changes you need to make to ensure this?
Thank you for this question, and also thank you for having me. What Hari Krishna said resonates very well with me and my experience so far, but I also rather want to point out 3 non-obvious shifts I'm observing these days, generally and specifically for us as capital market infrastructure provider, because we are working in a heavily regulated environment. So we are delivering and operating software and systems for regulated markets under supervision of authorities, which makes it always challenging, but also then value adding if we do it right. But let me come to the 3 non-obvious shifts. I think it's, and those are rather leadership than a tech game or a tech question. When we have a look at data availability is a must and is a commodity and the foundation of everything. But the shift is from data availability to accountability. The data governance and data ownership is clear in big organizations because there's never a lack of data, but it's a lack of organized and properly governed data, especially in a regulated environment where everything also needs to be auditable retroactively, especially in non-deterministic systems. And the second aspect here is data accountability creates also trust in the data and ultimately enables the outcome to be trusted by leaders. If you are not trusting the input, the output is for sure not trusted. So this is also the foundation, the accountability of data. So this is the first shift. The second shift is when we look at the business value and value creation, sandboxes and let's say secured environments to test things are super important in the beginning to play around with AI, but you should not be stuck in a sandbox. So you should really transition from a sandbox approach to a business-led at scale approach to really plug your AI efforts and ambitions into the business. Yes, it's also a tech game and it's anchored in AI and in people who are building and running the systems. But this is also what we did in Deutsche Börse Group. Since the beginning of the year, we established a transversal role of a chief digital transformation officer who oversees for the full group across all the segments and all the executive board members, legal entities, a consistent approach for AI, data, and also the underlying cloud transformation. So he has a AI root. He has roots in AI, but he thinks with a business mindset, and he is combining the view. And this transversal role is very important to transform from a sandbox use case approach to an at-scale business-led approach. And the third is ways of working. What Hari Krishna was saying is resonating very well with me. But just to add on this shift in delivery models and the usual well-known cross-functional teams, agile teams, this has to be more than ever complemented by a lifelong learning, upskilling and reskilling component, because the speed of development of AI models, of underlying tools is so fast that even freshers from the universities, which I call the experts of today. So when we hire experts, we have to hire people with 0 to 3 years experience. But those people also have a very short time frame where their knowledge is the leading edge knowledge. Also, the freshers needs to upskill and reskill, as I have to do it. Other senior leaders have to do it, everybody. And this is something you have also to plug in with proper trainings, right incentivation, and then you will transform the whole workforce to the next level. And to sum up, today the question is not anymore if we can build AI, it's really the question if we can trust it, if we can run it at scale, and if we stand behind the outcomes as an organization.
Yeah, and that's a big difference for you, a heavily regulated industry. But give us an idea, what are any of these now AI solutions that you're looking at reaching a scale level?
So from this perspective, we look at two things. We look at AI for our internal efficiency, and this is broken down into the efficiency really in developing and coding, in the software development lifecycle, and in the everyday efficiencies for all the support functions with the copilots and the like, where we build our own platform called Daisy, where all large language models are plugged in. So you can select if you want to go with Claude, if you want to go with Gemini or others, specifically also tailored to your use case. So we have end user efficiency, developer efficiency, and then business cases behind, where we create AI solutions for our customers, where we are creating revenue streams, growing revenue streams, not yet at scale, but for sure, this is where we look at that we also create value, where ultimately also customers will.
And the Hyderabad Center is playing a big role in all this?
The Hyderabad Center is absolutely playing a big role. It is and we don't call it anymore GCCs. Hyderabad is our talent and innovation location at scale, which is fully plugged into our global organization from an organizational perspective, but also from a governance perspective. And we are here in Hyderabad since last August, exactly to hire the right talent with the capabilities to develop and run AI at scale together with the global network.
Okay. Ludwig talked about the talent part of it. Things are changing so fast that we need a very different set of skills, upskilling, reskilling, even for freshers. Give us an idea, how big a challenge is that? What are the things that needs to change on the talent side?
Right. So I think, obviously a lot of things are going to play an important role in accelerating AI adoption, platforms, tools, technologies. But I guess talent is going to be the most critical building block. And, if just to set the context, before, AI became real or as real as it is today, there was a three-dimensional approach that companies used to take in hiring talent for the GCCs. You obviously looked at, superior job-related proficiencies. You had to be a good financial analyst or a good software programmer or a good supply chain expert, because GCCs typically do work which is at the high end of value chain. You had to be culturally compatible to be part of the enterprise. So that was an important, attribute. And of course, there had to be alignment around leadership expectations. And now, you added the fourth dimension, which is AI fluency, AI literacy, AI adaptability, AI mindset. And think about it from, two different ends of the spectrum. How people will build the ability to amplify their own potential by leveraging AI. I mean, that's one clear opportunity. You can just make your job a lot more easier and be a lot more productive if you use AI well. And then how do you fit into the new emerging operating models, which would be hybrid? I mean, the verdict is not out as yet, and some of these models are still evolving. But you're going to look at talent from a very different lens altogether. I mean, the notion of a good software engineer is going to go away, right? I mean, I'm going to use a phrase that Hari uses often, software will write itself. So therefore, you need people with the context, people with the ability to orchestrate, and that's going to be a lot more important, or to fit into, the different AI operating models that will work for different sort of use cases. So I guess there's going to be a big shakeup, a big reset in how and what kind of talent gets hired. There'll be new job families. The skills that are required are going to be very, very different. So there's going to be profound change. But the good thing is that, the GCCs and India is, they're well positioned to drive this change, right? Because you have people with that mindset, with those capabilities, with they're raring to, be relevant and contribute to, what is emerging in the AI world. So this is going to be, I guess, the biggest change as, AI becomes.
Is it bigger than what, let's say, even when cloud came, I guess there would have been a lot of reskilling, etc. required.
Absolutely. So I think you're talking about a whole different notion of reskilling, right? From, if there was a concept of an AIQ, an AI quotient, you looked at IQ and you looked at EQ, and now, there's an emerging notion of an AIQ, because the effectiveness of people to fit into that word and to embrace everything AI and to be effective is going to be a lot more important.
Okay, AIQ, that's a good one. Paul, what's your advice to GCCs on this, the talent side of it? Things are really changing a lot, is it?
Yeah, in that same Pulse Insights survey that I mentioned, 74% of leaders identified a gap in talent and skills. And it's not so much access to talent, but it's access to skills and the right skills. So very much what we've been hearing around continuous learning and upskilling and reskilling. I think to the last question you had asked, one big difference from AI from cloud is in the world of AI, we're creating talent. An AI agent is also a type of talent that's orchestrating work, that's managing other agents, that's making decisions with humans in the lead, of course. But that's very different than any other technology revolution we've seen before in terms of impacting how humans work. So three things then for those that we're seeing GCCs do. One is related to that is redesigning roles. So it's thinking about what if the role were 50% AI, how does the remaining role change? We heard a few examples here about trust and decisioning, prompt engineering, right? So the human in the lead of the agent, understanding the business context and fluency and getting that into the agent's intelligence is important to redesign the role so that when we talk about skilling, we know for what new skills are we skilling. The second is really investing in the middle. There's been a lot of talk around AI fluency at the leadership level, which is important because I think leaders need to understand the outputs that are coming and driving business decisions from it. But it's really at the middle, at the management layer or level, where the decision is made: do I use AI or not? Do I trust AI or not? Do I remain in my old way of working, or not? So really investing in the middle. The third one is refreshing the the employee value proposition. When GCCs enter the market to now, the EVP might require a refresh so that AI talent wants to work in your GCC. And included in that is opportunities to continuously learn and grow, for their careers to continuously develop and advance. Those two ideas are not new, but now specifically with the opportunities in AI, will they have the right investments in technology made by the GCC? Is it a place where they'll be working and practicing in sandboxes that allow them to continuously grow? And to attract that talent, we may need to refresh the EVP to tell the market. So just one quick conclusion on this is many organizations, not only GCCs, will measure the investment they're making on AI fluency in terms of how many courses have been completed, how many hours have been invested in training. And I think we need to stop that, get past that. That's foundational. It's not, it's similar to any operational metric, right? That's what it takes to get there. And instead measure how many business decisions were made differently because of the role AI played in it. An insight across a lot of data sources that a human couldn't possibly, come to that conclusion or new insight. How many of those are we really seeing come from the entire organization, but in particular, the GCC as a catalyst?
Okay, you seeing GCC is beginning to do all that?
Well, those are all actionable, I believe. Certainly we're seeing, and I think Lalit mentioned it earlier, is the redesign of roles, right? So whether it be setups or existing GCCs, it used to be that a GCC would get a demand plan to just go to the market and acquire the talent from the market. Today, it's a first pause and question. It's not a lift and shift of those roles. It's, first of all, if it was 100 before, do I need 100? But also of what remains, how's the composition of the work changing? How much of that work is automated? How much of that is augmented? And how many of the skills in the role are going away or evolving, and what new skills are required? And that's an important first step when you think about skilling, right? So now you know really where to target the future skills. So I think that's that one's quite actionable. I think investing in the middle, we don't see as much training budget as necessarily required to really invest in the middle, but it has to be in the flow of work, right? It's not about showing up for a class outside of your context of your work. It's about having AI coaches that are directly working alongside you. And I mean, AI agent coaches, right, that are in the flow of work. And I think Ludwig had an example even of helping choose which LLM you'd be using for which use case, right? So that's in the flow of their daily work. It's not a class on Monday and then I don't know where to go to apply it on Tuesday. Again, very actionable by the GCCs. And then, I think for a long time we were in GCCs dependent on the learning programs that were at headquarters, which I still think there's some merit. However, many GCCs are coming, Ludwig provided an example, to Hyderabad or wherever in India for access to the talent that they don't have access to at headquarters. And so that, for those people, require a different continuous learning program, right? If the headquarters had it, they might not have needed to be here. So if we have different talent here that have different needs, they might require these different learning programs. So I don't think it's overwhelming. I just think it's focusing more on the future skills that are required and the investment in AI
what you said earlier might explain why there's, what you said about pausing to figure out, okay, what do I really need, may explain some of the slowdown in fresher hiring now. But as AI use cases pick up, I guess some of these things will, fresher hiring, etc., hopefully will improve significantly. So Paul, this ecosystem orchestration, give us an idea. How does a GCC kind of bring together the best of talent from internally, externally?
Yeah, what we envision for the future is really a one GCC model that within it is built on the foundation of best sourcing. And what that means is that inside of a GCC, you should have work that's very distinctive to the company, to their growth agenda. It's where a company will want to build talent and grow talent even beyond the walls of the GCC. There'll also be, we spent a lot of time talking about agents that are orchestrating work, as well as performing work across functions to deliver a business outcome. Inside the same one GCC model, there's some things that a GCC benefits from a partner building, and Hari mentioned this, because there's a leapfrog in technology. Maybe there's an agent marketplace that the GCC can directly access very quickly. So that's inside of it, a capability that can be built by a partner inside the walls of the GCC, maybe operated for a period of time, and then handed back to the customer who's running the GCC. And there might also be some things that never make sense to take back, not only because technology can really drive productivity today, and so we don't want to have a GCC that's there to hire to fire, right? So in certain processes where 40 to 60 to even 80% productivity can be driven, maybe the GCC wants to look to a partner to drive that outcome, so they're not left with talent that doesn't have the work. And then in 2 or 3 years from now, there's probably new technology that again could drive even further capability or technology. And there'll be some work that comes back to the GCC, but others that will never be a distinctive capability of the company. And what we're envisioning instead of today, that is a complicated network where you might have a managed services provider in one city and a build, operate, transfer partner in another, and your GCC in a different part of town. Why not put all of that under one roof, right? One GCC, where you have the best access to talent and partnership is what we call best sourcing.
Hari and Ludwig, same. How are you handling this whole talent issue? Do you have to structurally change things?
Yeah, I think we're learning about it. I mean, to take off from where Paul left, in terms of how are we look at this not as just an upskilling program or a reskilling program. I think that's important. That's the first step. But we think of this as more a role evolution. How are we actually going to evolve these roles? This is going to be a gradual shift from where we are today. So it's like, what is defined as core? And I think Lalit alluded to it earlier, saying, we expect a good software engineer to write excellent syntax, right? A software programmer. That's gone now, right? So what is core for us now, and what will it be for us in the future? What is the adjacencies that are there now? Like, what frameworks do I use, right? Whether from a developer, I'm talking about Spring Boot, or I'm talking about other frameworks. Now, what are the new frameworks that I have to use in the context of AI? Those become adjacencies, right? So what are the new adjacencies that we're talking about here? And then what are the differentiators that we are looking at, right? So the differentiators today is a great software engineer writes code. It's all about velocity. It is about the density of bugs in the output that you're giving. These are some of the measures. I think we are talking about differentiators in the future where we may say, hey, what is the system thinking that this person has, right? So that they do the right code. They can embellish or can kind of create a multiplier effect for their core skill, which is essentially saying, I'm orchestrating and prompting for systems to write code, right? Or the AI models to write code. So what are those differentiators? AI explainability, like when my code does what it does, can I explain it in a better way? AI ethics, right? I think Paul mentioned, when do I use AI versus when do I go back to my old ways of doing things because it is not trustworthy? And I think those are things that we are slowly starting to look at new talent. We are not creating new roles. We are taking the existing job because that's too much of a disruptive change. It requires you to align everything from the corporate headquarters to how we design roles, how we design jobs, how we compensate them, how do we reward them, how do we hold them and retain them. I think it's a much larger program, much easier for a new GCC setup to do than an existing GCC to do. So we are looking at that in terms of role evolution primarily. And that's how we are inducing those small changes. And
India's talent, how easy is it to kind of mold them into this?
See, I think, again, that's also a very progressive thing. What we are trying to do is, when we have defined the scope, what we need, I think we use the broader ecosystem. So what should we hire for? What should we borrow from our, partners, like large system integrators? And where do we borrow them from, and how long do we borrow them for? And third one, what do we buy, right? So the buy bucket doesn't exist today largely because everybody is in the process of building those skills. So you don't have a lot of them. So it's largely for us kind of build them yourselves and borrow them from some of the partners. And are we successful, to answer your question? Yes, I think we are. But again, we are at a what we call as a scaling stage. We are not at a scale stage. And so the use cases are not coming as fast as we are kind of, I think we have to get ahead of the demand, right? I mean, that's the whole idea. And we don't need this to be flipping a switch. We do this more gradually, and so it becomes sustainable for us.
Okay. Ludwig, same question to you.
Let me comment on this, because I agree what Hare Krishna said. And what I think is then important to make all this happen is, again, the leadership perspective, especially on a team lead level. Currently hiring the right roles for the first layer of leadership roles, the team leads. They define in the end the ways of working. They define and have to manage the output, and they need to get the accountability for the output. To have the right leaders, not only at the top and maybe one layer below, but the right leaders on the ground working on a daily basis with the teams. They are the ones who need to make sure that the teams work well together, not only in India, but across all geographies. They need to take care of the upskilling and reskilling. They are also then the decisive factors in the daily life if you attract the best talent or not from the different universities, because in the end it's still the human in the loop everywhere, more or less in the future, but it will be a human who attracts people. At least at the moment I cannot imagine something different. Let's talk in 5 years. And also people leave humans who are not good leaders for them in their career. So to exactly make a very conscious decisions for your team lead, so the first leadership layer on the ground, that those are the right people with the right mix of skills and talent. This is for me the decisive role, because they are the multipliers also than hiring then the right different team members.
So how are you ensuring that? You've been in India for some time now.
Yes.
You already have team leads.
Yes.
So what is your message to them? You are telling them that you have to change, is it?
No, my message to them, we hire the right people and you are the best leadership team I could dream of.
Okay.
This is because we selected them very carefully, and they are doing a great job so far.
Okay. But you selected them before AI and all that, didn't you? Or
I mean, we had the blessing to be one of the GCCs, or now talent innovation locations Lalit mentioned, which has been established only in August 25. So we are not only one year old, so we are very new. This is why it's a bit easier for us, because we started Greenfield in India.
right.
So we really did this consciously. We handpicked our team leads, which so far is, I think, a key success factor and working out quite well.
Okay. Yeah, that's the difference that Lalit was initially talking about. For a new GCC, you can kind of start off with this new model.
For
and all that.
greenfield, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And Hari, the kind of things that you're talking about for software developers and all, it applies equally to us as journalists. You can't imagine how much AI can write our stories now. Unbelievable.
Content writers to content editors, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Paul, what Hari and Ludwig and all were saying, it's now a matter of, you can't have everything inside your company. You have to orchestrate the ecosystem in some ways, get talent from outside, get expertise, etc. What role can GCCs play in doing that orchestration?
Yeah. We see 2 out of 3 GCC leaders, again, from the same study, prioritize ecosystem partnerships as one of their top priorities in their strategic plan. And one part is that GCCs have a unique role, not the only place in the organization, but one place in the organization where you have technology, many business functions, and talent all coming together in one environment. And so that cross-functional capability, business function and technology together, as well as the ecosystem availability here in India, does create a role for the GCC to be an orchestrator of the right, and Hari said, what do we build? What do we borrow? What do we buy? We think it's in the borrow. We're replacing that with orchestrate. So what capabilities are we building ourselves, buying from partnerships? And when I talk about orchestration, that's a variety of big players. It's also startups that maybe have something that's quick and drives speed to value very quickly that many GCC's leaders are interested in. There's also partnerships with academia, and here we are at the NASSCOM event as well. So orchestration of ecosystem is not only big technology partners and players, but also small, agile, nimble ones that you can plug and play. So GCC is playing that role of what do we build, what do we buy, what do we orchestrate. And then there is a place of earning that, because I think the GCC can play an even larger role in being the ecosystem orchestrator for the enterprise. Now that doesn't come by declaring it or giving that assignment, but rather delivering certain outcomes, through ecosystem orchestration. So really, the GCC can play an important role as the connective tissue around bringing all these piece parts together to drive the right outcome. And we are, indeed seeing the GCC play that role. Depending on where you're coming from and in which geography your business operates, in certain markets where my clients are headquartered, they would have to get on a plane to go meet with their ecosystem partners in San Francisco or in Madrid or wherever they are. Here, it's more of a vibrant, connected ecosystem where it can come together.
I think I've heard from people I think Lalit probably is one of those who told me about exactly what you just said. I mean, you have in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, maybe even Pune, you have everybody. You have the IT services companies like yours, the startups, there's the academia, there are the tech companies like a Microsoft, SAP, etc.
Sure.
I mean, so you can really bring all of them in one city in some ways, easy to kind of orchestrate that, right?
As well as, government interest and investment in that same ecosystem.
And you see that GCC is beginning to do that kind of orchestration?
Yeah, absolutely. Without naming any specific clients, because I'm thinking through a variety of them, is exactly that. It's what do we need to build ourselves just because of it's not available yet or we're not seeing it yet. But what can we get from there? There are some private equity backed Gen AI, companies that can build agents in weeks for directly working with clients. There are larger players that are solving bigger problems, bringing their whole AI architecture and multi-cloud LLMs to be able to drive an outcome, but that's at a higher cost and a longer duration. There's I know for the India country head of companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and are very closely connected with companies like Accenture, but they're also very closely connected directly with the GCCs themselves. So absolutely, we're seeing all of that. In fact, I think we're probably seeing too much noise, not enough noise. And so some of the questions are, how can a company like Accenture help orchestrate that ecosystem on behalf of our GCC clients or alongside our GCC clients? Because otherwise, they'll get hit with a phone call every day or every few hours from somebody who's trying to sell them something that's easy to start with and access. So I'd say it's too much, not too little, and we need to quiet the noise a little bit. But the GCC playing that role is absolutely already here and a big part of what the HQ looks to them for.
Lalit, same question to you. Are you seeing GCCs now playing that orchestration role?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're bringing the power of the ecosystem together, right? I mean, they are a lot more adaptive, a lot more nimble, flexible, lot more open to change, and therefore, they have a much greater propensity to, play that orchestration role. All of these segments, even with startups and all that, you see many of them trying to work, setting up incubator models and working with startups and all that. Is that happening? And some part of it has to do with, companies that have, new ways of sort of working. And like Paul was talking about, private equity backed startups that can, build agentic marketplaces in, days and weeks. So I guess GCCs are opening out to, the ecosystem around them, accessing, the best talent from academic institutions, working directly with product and platform companies, partnering much better with the service providers, collaborating with other GCCs. A lot of it is around, insights and, baselining certain kinds of work and functions. So given the fact that the industry is so well connected, there's a lot of, information and, insights that are sort of flowing, and GCCs are playing a very critical role in terms of connecting those dots and making it relevant to the context of the enterprise they are part of.
Okay. Hari and Ludwig, same question. Are you beginning to do that? Already done that? To what extent?
I think yes, a little bit. In terms of, I think that we're moving slowly from, as we mature as a GCC. I think the three most important points are: one, how much of the sponsorship do we have from the leadership with respect to the
From the
GCC?
enterprise, you mean?
From the enterprise, right? How do we see this as a not just as a cost arbitrage, but an innovation or a competitive differentiator for our business, right? I mean, and how does the C-suite look at it from that perspective? I think that's a very important determinant to what kind of functions then you house within the capability center here. And how do you run them more as, so move from delivery engine to a more decision rights, how do you move from a delivery driven organization to a more a decision rights? So what kind of workloads are we thinking about that can be housed here? What kind of capabilities are we talking about that are here, right? So I think that decisions and those things are moving in a positive direction with respect to how things are moving. And I talk to a lot of colleagues that say the same thing, right?
Enterprises are recognizing that India GCCs can kind of do all of this.
Yes, and then they are very uniquely positioned with respect to the scale that they can provide, the skills that can be provided, the trust and credibility that they have based on what they have delivered to date and what they've shown. And then the most important thing is the density of talent, right? So those four things actually act as places the GCC in a unique position for them to be able to leverage. And I think there's a once in a lifetime transformation, or maybe once a decadal or a transformation that we have with respect to AI. So if we are able to get ahead of the curve in terms of being prepared for it, building the right capabilities, the skills, the operating model in the construct of what our business needs and where we are going, I think then this becomes a very important backbone for AI in the enterprise. That's how we like to think about it.
Ludwig, you want to add to that?
I'd be brief in answering the question, and then I would have a call to action, which I think would help many Indo-European GCC. So to briefly answer the question, so yes, we are here in India, in Hyderabad specifically, to drive AI on innovation. This was one of the key pillars why we went to India. Very precise and short, and so far it's really working well.
Okay, got it. Manu, we are running out of time. Last question to all of you. India has been very good at delivery excellence. We proved that through both the IT services companies and the GCCs. We've done an excellent job, which has built a lot of trust globally among enterprises. Now, in this age of AI, we have this great opportunity for GCCs here to become an enterprise influencer. What is your advice to leaders of GCC? Some 2-3 things that you think they should prioritize to be able to become that enterprise influencer in some sense. Lalit, you want to have a go first?
So I think some part of it is already in motion today. The role that GCCs play in terms of influencing the enterprise growth and transformation agenda. But I guess, AI comes as an opportunity to, further, that position in terms of the role that GCCs can play. I spoke about it a little bit earlier in terms of, how do you, build those capabilities to influence without authority. So, developing leadership skills, because it's going to be a lot about change management. And how do you drive that change? Everything is going to change. Work is going to change. How you work is going to change. Who does the work is going to change. And maybe even the place of work is going to change. And therefore, there is a need for that influencing ability. I guess you got to broad base your organizational context, right? You have to go beyond, the work that you do. It's the broader business context that becomes now suddenly, extremely important. So understanding more about the business nuances, in the context of, AI is going to be extremely critical. So you have to more, I would say, contextually empower yourselves. The third has to be in terms of how do you build the talent pool so that you are more future ready. It is not only getting the right people, but the right mindset, the right operating model, and, maybe working on the right use cases. There's going to be a widening gap between the power of AI and its adoption. And that is going to be the dilemma we're going to live in for a period of time. There's going to come an inflection point when there are going to be those big step changes. So, building that resilience and that flexibility and that adaptability is going to be extremely important. So I would say it's a call for uplifting, elevating, leadership, which is going to be the most important consideration for the GCC.
Ludwig?
There's nothing much to add because this resonates very well with me. Just maybe one culture, it's an adjacent aspect, and also a global governance model. So treat your India location as a part of your global governance model. And what I also observe/recommend people who don't know this concept, forget all the cliches who are 10, 20 years ago, they are fully outdated. Go to India, enjoy, and trust in the outcome.
Trust in the outcome. Hari?
I think adding on to what Lalit and Ludwig said, I think I would think of three things. Trust. I think we need to kind of go back to building the trust with the enterprise or within the enterprise. And that trust is, I think, the most deficit commodity. There is just too much of orchestration that goes on from the headquarters to the GCC and vice versa. I think if you want to look at AI at scale and you want to look at the next generation of GCCs, I think that will happen if the decision rights are, and the new ways of working will require faster decisions to be made and decision rights to be, the agency for decision rights should also lie with the GCC in the work that they are managing and the outcomes that they are managing, right? So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, I would say, earn the right to do more, right? I think earn the right to do more comes not because, ask not what the enterprise can do for you. Ask yourself, what can you do for the enterprise, right? So I think that's a very, very important thing. We have always been in a mindset, most GCCs and colleagues that I speak say, or of complaining in nature that we don't get enough to do from the enterprise.
Just waiting for instructions.
Waiting for instructions or wanting the decision rights. I think that you need to earn the right to do more. So what can you do? Right? Don't wait. There's always a lot of flexibility in terms of where you can orchestrate things within the framework of the current decision rights that you have. So how can you maximize that, hit the ceiling before you can ask for more, right? I think that's incremental thinking. But that's what I think builds trust and helps you further the mission, right? I think the third one, I think the days of those linear progression and talent with respect to how we look at talent is definitely, I think, adding to what Lalit said, is gone, right? I think what I see with the India workforce in both my past experiences is that the workforce here is more agile to change. They're more open to change. They're more open to experimentation. So how do you create the capability center as a bedrock for experimentation? Try things. It's okay to fail. Again, within the decision rights, you don't have to go and start building a new product, right? So that's, I think, the third thing, and all in alignment with where the business is going, what do we need to deliver, and how can we basically become that competitive differentiator. So those are the three things I would kind of focus on.
Trust, talent. Paul, last one.
Well, the beauty of going last is I get to build on the wisdom of my colleagues here. But there are some points that I would like to reinforce. One is, as we think about AI and the role that the GCCs play as a catalyst. So one of the three, I would say, is for the GCC to develop thought leadership and expertise, with integrity around what really are the rules, what is allowed and isn't allowed. And in this world of AI and generation of, or management of data and generation of IP here, there has to be that expertise. The second is deliberate orchestration of the ecosystem. Right now, as I had mentioned before, it's noisy, it's reactive, but really to be thoughtful out 6, 12, 18 months of how the work will be forming, what role you want the GCC to be playing, and then proactively and deliberately orchestrate the ecosystem. And then the third is, again, repeating talent, but thinking about the work of the future and, again, being 18 months ahead, whether it's through skilling or hiring, that we're doing that for the work that we imagine ourselves doing in 18 months. And then I love Hari's point, and I was also planning to suggest the same around being able to bring to the enterprise, the value and not waiting. So the combination of those three is the GCC bringing back to the organization the ideas, the value, the insights, not because they've been asked for or not because they're waiting for it, but because the power of what they're doing here, they can bring that. And when you bring that, you get asked to do more. So it's a bit of a two-way street.
Wonderful. Like all of you said, GCCs have already done a phenomenal job of execution and delivery excellence, and we've to a great extent earned the trust of the world, but AI is taking that trust levels to even higher levels. I'm sure, the way we've seen GCCs progress over the years and the IT services companies as well, they change, they know how to make these changes. So I'm very confident actually that I think many of these GCCs can, like you said, 29% are already doing a lot of influencing kind of AI work. And I'm sure those proportions can only grow. Thank you all for a great discussion. I'm sure we'll have a lot more opportunity to discuss all of this subsequent discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you.